गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम बात करेंगे इस इम्पोर्टेंट विषय के ऊपर, विल ओवरहॉलिंग डीआरडीओ इंश्योर आत्मनिर्भरता। और इस बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट विषय के बारे में बात करने के लिए मेरे साथ हैं जनरल अनिल आहूजा। सर, गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट टू डिस्कस द ओवरऑल ऑफ डीआरडीओ।
Good evening, Jan Shankar.
Right. Thanks, sir, for coming on the show. Before I give a background and all this, how important do you think is this whole business of, overhauling the DRDO? A mota point before I, get into why and all that.
See, in our country, what we are ultimately looking at as a long term aim is achieving self reliance. Well, it can't be total self reliance, but enhancing the level of indigenization and self reliance. And in this entire exercise, reforming of DRDO is but a part of it.
Yep.
It's not whole. How much of part of it is difficult to quantify, but like I said, it's a significant part of achieving indigenization. So doing this exercise is important.
Right. So with that this is part of the entire exercise. I will now put the fundamentals in place and then we will discuss bit by bit how we go about this whole affair. Right. मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूं, जैसे जनरल आहूजा ने बताया है कि रिफॉर्म ऑफ डीआरडीओ इज पार्ट ऑफ द प्रोसेस। मैंने मोटे मोटे तौर पर, विदाउट कंफ्यूजिंग द होल थिंग, कि ये जो इंडिजिनस डिफेंस कैपेबिलिटी बिल्डिंग का जो इकोसिस्टम है, मैंने ये 3 ब्लॉक में मोटा मोटा आपको बताया है। सबसे पहले ब्लॉक आता है जो सर्विसेज हैं, जो आर्मी, नेवी, एयरफोर्स, जो लड़ाई लड़ते हैं, उनका एक ऑपरेशनल पर्सपेक्टिव है कि हम लड़ाई कैसे लड़ेंगे, और उनका एक रिक्वायरमेंट होता है। वो रिक्वायरमेंट क्या होता है? वो टेरेन के ऊपर होता है, उनका अनुभव के ऊपर होता है, और उनका जो टेक्नोलॉजी वो जानते हैं उसके ऊपर होता है, और दुश्मन के पास क्या है वो सब लेके ये एक रिक्वायरमेंट बनाते हैं। राइट। ये सब वो देते हैं डीआरडीओ को। डीआरडीओ का काम है कि इसके ऊपर रिसर्च करना, टेक्नोलॉजी इसके ऊपर रिसर्च करना, डिजाइन करना हथियारों को, और डेवलप करना और इनोवेट करना। ये नहीं, जरूरी नहीं है कि हर टेक्नोलॉजी जो दुनिया में है वो लाके इधर खड़ा करे। राइट। और ये भी जरूरी नहीं है कि हमें हर वक्त नया टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए, आधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए, क्योंकि हमें वो टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए जिससे लड़ाई जीता जा सकता है। ठीक, ये डीआरडीओ का काम है। और जब डीआरडीओ डिजाइन, डेवलपमेंट, रिसर्च वगैरह खत्म कर देता है, ये पूरा एक प्रोडक्शन एजेंसी को देता है, जो हथियारों को या एनी वॉरलाइक स्टोर, लड़ाई के लिए जो भी उपयोग होता है सामान, वो प्रोडक्शन एजेंसी, जैसे पहले ओएफबी था, अभी 8-9 और उसके हिस्से बन गए, और ये डीपीएसयूज या प्राइवेट सेक्टर को देते हैं, जो एक सही तादाद में कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव बेसिस के ऊपर, क्योंकि किफायती होना चाहिए और क्वालिटी भी होना चाहिए, क्योंकि लड़ाई का सामान जो है, ये याद रखिए, ये कभी इस्तेमाल होता है, 25-30 साल में एक बार होता है, और वो ये जो सामान आज बनाते हो 20 साल के बाद काम आ सकता है, और उस वक्त क्वालिटी सही होना चाहिए कि लड़ाई के ऊपर, लड़ाई के मैदान में काम करे। सो ये बनाते हैं। ये है मोटा तौर पर इकोसिस्टम। मैं बाकी चीजों के ऊपर बात नहीं कर रहा। ओके, जहां तक डिफेंस टेक्नोलॉजी का इकोसिस्टम है और डिफेंस सिस्टम्स है, डिफेंस टेक्नोलॉजी जो है वो सिर्फ डीआरडीओ में नहीं है। डीआरडीओ में है, स्टार्टअप्स में है, एकेडमिया में है, ये ज्ञान इसरो में है, क्योंकि इसरो और हमारा जो इसरो भी रॉकेट चलाता है, हम भी रॉकेट चलाते हैं, उसके ज्ञान और टेक्नोलॉजी बराबर है। डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एटॉमिक एनर्जी में है, सीएसआईआर लैब्स में है, काउंसिल ऑफ साइंटिफिक एंड इंडस्ट्रियल रिसर्च, जो उनका एक बड़ा नेटवर्क है, वो एक जैसे नेशनल एरोनॉटिकल लेबोरेटरी, उनके पास अपने, फॉर एग्जांपल इंडिया के अंदर सबसे बड़ा सिस्टम है जो एयरप्लेन्स को टेस्ट कर सकते हैं, राइट। और विंड टनल जो बोलते हैं, उनके पास सबसे बड़ा विंड टनल है। और वे टेक्नोलॉजी जो है कोलैबोरेशन और टीओटी के जरिए भी आ सकता है। तो ये बहुत तरीके हैं, पर नोडल एजेंसी जो है इसमें टेक्नोलॉजी का रिपोजिटरी आर्मी के लिए, वो डीआरडीओ है, राइट। ऑलरेडी हमारा जो प्रोडक्शन एजेंसी का रिफॉर्म हो गया है और ओएफबी का रिफॉर्म होकर उसको तोड़ दिया गया है और अलग अलग हिस्से में, छोटे हिस्से में किया गया है। अभी ये एक जनरल परसेप्शन है कि पूरे इसमें कि हमारा जो डीआरडीओ हैज नॉट बीन एबल टू डिलीवर टू द नेशन इन द राइट टाइम, क्वांटिटी एंड क्वालिटी जो भी है। और इसीलिए एक गवर्नमेंट ने एक कमिटी नियुक्त किया है, 9 मेंबर कमिटी, जो डीआरडीओ को ओवरऑल करने के लिए टास्क किया गया है। और इसी के बारे में हम समझने के लिए आज मैंने जनरल आहूजा को बुलाया है। और मैं बताना चाहता हूं इनको क्यों बुलाया मैंने, 2 मिनट। वो इसीलिए बुलाया है, ये डिप्टी चीफ थे कैपेबिलिटी डेवलपमेंट में, इंटीग्रेटेड हेडक्वार्टर ऑफ एमओडी आईडीएस में। ये पूरा इंडियन आर्मी का, इंडियन इनफैक्ट आर्म फोर्सेस का कैपेबिलिटी डेवलपमेंट प्लान बनाते थे, उसको मॉनिटर करते थे, सब कुछ करते थे। और ये आर्टिलरी ऑफिसर है, मेरे 6 महीने सीनियर है। हम 7 कर्नल कमांडेंट थे रेजिमेंट ऑफ आर्टिलरी के। और मैं इनको जानता हूं कि इनका हिज अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी इज सेकंड टू नन, राइट। और इसीलिए इस इंपॉर्टेंट विषय के बारे में बात करने के लिए मैंने इनको बुलाया है, राइट। हमारा पहले सवाल ये है, जो मैं इनसे आग्रह करूंगा कि ये बताएं कि व्हाई is there any committee before this to overhaul the DRDO or change the DRDO? What is the necessity of doing all this? And will overall really go there? I mean, you can start from the first, give a background as to earlier committees which tried to, overhaul the DRDO. All to you, sir.
See, it's always been a matter of great concern for us that we have been amongst the largest importers of defense arms equipment in the world traditionally. And this process of setting up committees is not new. क्योंकि हमारे हमारा ये प्रयास रहा है हमेशा से कि हम अपने इंपोर्ट्स को कम करें और इंडिजनाइजेशन को ज्यादा करें। अर्ली 90s, 1991, 92, 93, our erstwhile president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Now, when he was heading the DRDO in early 90s, there was a committee under him, and what he said was that in next few years, we should be able to reverse the ratio. यानी उनके समय में हम लगभग 30% इंडिजिनस खरीदते थे और 70% इंपोर्ट करते थे। और उन्होंने एक विजन लेआउट किया जिससे उन्होंने कहा कि हमें ये रिवर्स करना चाहिए, यानी 70% शुड बी इंडिजिनस, 30% शुड बी इंपोर्टेड। Well, that was a great vision, but we've not been able to realize it. Then in 2007, there's a famous Ramarao committee. Now, they looked at reforming the DRDO, carrying out a number of changes. The recommendations around 2008 that came out, around 2010 or so, the recommendations got implemented. a large number of the labs of DRDO, they were grouped into 7 clusters under distinguished scientists, and they they sort of consolidated it to bring greater efficiency. We started having technology development fund and many other improvements were brought into it, and we'll see as we go by. Now things have moved on, and very recently, as we will again cover during the course of our discussion, even the Standing Committee on Defense in the beginning of this year suggested in its report that the DRDO performance has improved. Now the question is, what has improved? What we want to improve? Those are the things which we need to identify. So the question is, there have been a number of committees who've looked at reforming DRDO functioning, reforming DRDO organizations. And this is yet another committee which has been appointed with the certain specific directions. And we have to see that what do we really want to reform? What is the yardstick जिसके ऊपर हम मेजर करेंगे कि DRDO का परफॉर्मेंस इंप्रूव हो गया है? So in essence, to answer your initial question, yes, there have been committees, they have made recommendations, a number of recommendations have been implemented, some important recommendations have not been implemented. This is yet another committee, and we have to see what are the directions given to it and what is the end result achieved and how do we measure it. We should
Right.
discuss this as we go by.
Right. मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ कि just because a committee has been set up to overhaul the DRDO, as it is generally said, it is not as if the DRDO is going to be broken up or wished away or closed or all that nonsense. Let me be very categoric. At the outset, the DRDO has achieved a lot for the country. It still remains the biggest repository of defense technology, right? And a lot of our capability has emanated from the successes of DRDO, right? I can vouch for it because I was part of it at a very early stage of my career. I was, after all, part of the first Agni and Prithvi missile firings, and I coordinated them when I was a young man. But then things have moved, and we have to move further. And the nation has felt that there's a requirement to overhaul it because probably the delivery was not good enough, and vision of Dr. Abdul Kalam, which General Ahuja said, was not met. So keeping this in mind, sir, this committee, what do you think would be the aim given to this committee? And what do you think are the terms of reference? कि करना क्या चाहिए इनसे क्या उम्मीद रखते हैं हम कि ये करेंगे क्या?
See, very broadly speaking, they have been given 6 broad tasks, if I may highlight these in a very brief form. First is restructuring and redefining roles of both Department of Defense R&D and DRDO, and define their inter-se relationship and relationship with academia and industry. I would like the viewers to understand that these are 2 verticals, like
Within DRDO, within what we understand
within
as
Ministry
DRDO.
of Defense, within Ministry of Defense.
Okay.
See, Ministry of Defense has a Department of Defense. It has a Department of Defense Production. It has a Department of Defense R&D. It has another Department of Ex-Servicemen's Welfare, which we'll leave it aside. And now the recent one is Department of Military Affairs, DMA, which came in when the CDS came. Now, each department is headed by a secretary. Likewise, Department of Defense R&D is also headed by a secretary. Under this department, there is an organization, like under the Department of Defense or under the Department of DMA, you have Army, Navy, Air Force. So likewise, under the Department of Defense R&D, there's an organization called
DRDO.
Defense Research and Development Organization. Now that has a director general heading it. So if you look at it, these are two different verticals, but traditionally, the Secretary of Defense, Department of Defense R&D, and the DG of the DRDO, this has vested in one person. So it has been a common vertical. Now, if you look at it positively, it gives you an inherent integration, which the services had been asking for long time, that Army, Navy, Air Force should be integrated with Ministry of Defense. Now here it gives you inherent integration. And if you look at it not so positively, then the entire power or entire decision making is rested in one person in one appointment. So the first task given is restructuring and redefining the roles of this department and DRDO,
Okay.
their inter-se relationship, and their relationship with industry and with academia.
Okay.
The second is to find ways to maximize participation. You had shown that slide in the beginning, जो आपने अभी दिखाई थी slide. आपने पूरा ecosystem दिखाया था defense research and development का. इसमें they want that let's find the ways to maximize participation of academia, MSMEs, startups in pioneering cutting edge technology development. Because everybody has to work together, nobody can do it alone. The third is you have to have strategies to attract talent and retain the top talent and project oriented workforce where there are incentives and where there are disincentives if you don't perform, and there is accountability. Now, as of now, it works like a government department where these things are not adequately there. Some of it was implemented post Ramarao committee, some incentives were built in, additional increments, etc. But the endeavor is to bring in incentivization and penalization for non-performance. The fourth aspect is to harness the expertise of NRIs, foreign consultants, and fostering international cooperation in technology. जैसे आपने सुना होगा अमेरिका के साथ, फ्रांस के साथ हम बात कर रहे हैं critical on emerging technologies की cooperation का. That how do we integrate all these and the foreign consultants and the agreements that we are having. The fifth is related to their internal functioning, whether it is administrative, personal, financial systems, to refine them. And the last is streamlining the structure of the laboratories. Like there used to be 50 laboratories, about 5 were reduced after Ramarao committee because some were amalgamated, some functions were amalgamated. So it's this streamlining the structure of labs and refining process of performance evaluation. So this is the task that has been given to this committee, and what they do about it, and when the results are achieved, on what parameters do we measure those results? Now that remains nebulous as of now.
Right. वो थोड़ा दूर की बात है कि क्या पैरामीटर इस्तेमाल करेंगे, किस नाप तोल के ऊपर ये असेसमेंट किया जाएगा. पर मेरा एक अलग सवाल है। व्हाट इज द नेसेसिटी ऑफ सेटिंग अप दिस कमिटी, और इसके परिणाम और या आउटकम्स आप क्या देखते हो, व्हाट विल कम आउट?
देखिए, ऐसा है कि इसके परिणाम हम क्या देखना चाहते हैं, इसके लिए मुझे मैं एक उदाहरण देता हूं आपको। जो हमारी स्टैंडिंग कमेटी ऑफ डिफेंस है, जिसके बारे में मैंने अपने ओपनिंग रिमार्क्स में ब्रीफली मेंशन किया था, उन्होंने इस साल के शुरू में, मार्च दिस ईयर, उन्होंने डीआरडीओ की परफॉर्मेंस को अप्रिशिएट किया था। और अप्रिशिएट करते वक्त उन्होंने उसके कुछ अचीवमेंट्स को हाईलाइट किया था। और उन्होंने उस अचीवमेंट्स को क्या हाईलाइट किया, यानी अगर हम कहते हैं कि अच्छा जी आपने बहुत अच्छा काम किया, तो किस नापतोल के ऊपर, किस यार्डस्टिक के ऊपर उन्होंने कहा कि आपने अच्छा काम किया है। उन्होंने कुछ चीजें जो बोली वो इस किस्म से थी। उन्होंने कहा डीआरडीओ हैज इनकॉर्पोरेटेड प्राइवेट सेक्टर more deeply into R&D. That is, first was greater incorporation of private sector. Next was transferring more IPRs free of cost to the industry, creating creating better testing facilities, creating and spending larger pool of technology development fund, completion of mission mode projects in time. Some of them, of course, they criticize them for some overshooting. Now, some of these were highlighted as achievements. So today, when we look at the final outcome, how will we measure it? क्या उन्होंने ज्यादा प्राइवेट सेक्टर को ले आए, ज्यादा एमएसएमई को ले आए, ज्यादा एकेडमिया को लेके आ गए इसके अंदर, क्या उन्होंने और टेस्ट फैसिलिटीज इंप्रूव कर दी, क्या उन्होंने और आईपीआर फ्री ट्रांसफर कर दिए, क्या है क्या? लेकिन अगर मैं अपने दिमाग से सोचूं, अकॉर्डिंग टू माय यार्डस्टिक, all these are means towards one final end, and that one final end to my mind is how much of imports can we reduce. जैसे डॉक्टर कलाम ने 92-93 में बोला कि we want to reverse the ratio of indigenous versus imports from 30-70 to 70-30. So even today, if I have to measure all the parameters, like we say, proof of the pudding is in eating. To me, the proof of the pudding is when can we reduce our imports and have greater indigenization.
तो वो तो हुआ नहीं, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है। तो इसका
होना
मतलब
चाहिए,
जितने भी होना चाहिए, पर हुआ ही नहीं।
या या
और ये हुआ नहीं, इसके बावजूद कि आपने आईपीआर बनाया, टेक्नोलॉजी बनाया, सबको दिया, प्राइवेट प्लेयर को ले आया, टेस्ट फैसिलिटीज इंक्रीज किया, वगैरह वगैरह, आपका पुडिंग बढ़ता पर पुडिंग बना ही नहीं, राइट? तो ये क्यों हुआ है? ये मोटे मोटे तौर पर व्हाई हैज दिस, क्योंकि अगर ये सही होता तो हमारा इंपोर्ट डिपेंडेंस कम हो जाता। यही है आपका प्रूफ ऑफ द पुडिंग इज ईटिंग। ईटिंग में तो हमें हथियार चाहिए जो जिसके साथ हम लड़ सकते हैं, इन टाइम चाहिए, इन क्वांटिटी चाहिए, राइट? और ये अगर मिलता तो आपको किफायत भी होगा, आपका बजट भी कम होगा, और इंपोर्ट बिल भी कम होगा, फॉरेन एक्सचेंज बचेगा, आप खुद यहाँ लोकल जॉब्स भी क्रिएट करते हो। बहुत इकोसिस्टम, जैसे पता है, हमें सबको पता है, हम बात करते रहते हैं। ये क्यों नहीं हुआ, मोटे मोटे तौर पर बताइए, ये व्हाई हैज इट नॉट इम्प्रूव्ड?
see, like I have mentioned, you take your mind back to early 90s, and we've been at it for 3 to 4 decades. We've been at it. Now, let's come to some basics to find an answer कि क्यों नहीं हुआ. उस बेसिस के लिए मैं देखूंगा कि डीआरडीओ की आज की एग्जिस्टिंग विजन क्या है, उनका मिशन क्या है, और जो हमने प्रोफेसर राघवन कमेटी की टर्म्स ऑफ रेफरेंस दी हैं, इनको अगर आपस में तीनों चीजों को इकट्ठा देखें और समझने की कोशिश करें, मे बी वी फाइंड एन आंसर where the problem lies. Now, first, let me highlight to you what is the existing vision. The vision is to empower the nation with state-of-art, indigenous defense technologies and systems. So, we are looking at state-of-art technologies, indigenous defense technologies, developing them. In some we have foundation, in some we don't have foundation. We have to get them or we have to develop them. So this is the larger existing vision. Now, under this vision, broadly, the missions are that we are looking at design, development, and leading to production state-of-art sensors, weapon systems, platforms, allied equipment for our armed forces. That is, we are looking at designing, development, and leading to production. Let's say prototypes. The second thing we are looking at is provide technological solutions to the services to optimize their combat effectiveness and promote well-being of troops. And then, of course, the third is a supportive kind of mission, that is develop infrastructure, committed quality manpower, and build strong technological base. So we are looking at future, creating technologies for the future. We are looking at finding technology solutions for our problems of today, our operational problems here and now. And we are trying to build a technological base. Now, if you look at it, this is quite a tall order which is given. आज के लिए, कल और कल से आगे, for day after tomorrow, and to develop that pace. Now, also, there are some of us who say that the desired aim is to focus on cutting edge technologies and boosting defense industry. That is, you support them also, like they've been giving IPRs that you've designed, developed, and hold their hand in doing all this. So today, the question is that we don't really have any other organization other than DRDO which can look into defense related technologies. Like, take the example of America. I just take it because they have a developed system as compared to us. In India, we don't have any integral technology related organization in the services. Like they have it in their Army, Navy, Air Force. Some technology element, some labs, we don't have it. Everything we rely on DRDO. Now, private infrastructure, some of our industry, some of our academia, like the IIT Chennai, where you are there, now IIT Mumbai, and certain other IITs, and other scientific institutions, some have infrastructure, but it is still inadequate. It is not there to replace DRDO. The next is, you had shown the important role of the services. जब आपने दिखाया DRDO, services, and production agencies. Now, one of the biggest problems that we have is we have mixed up priorities. We really don't make a distinction between our current requirements for today's operational requirement and our requirements for tomorrow and day after tomorrow. And there are no defined timelines. We don't really appreciate the timelines. For us today is whatever is ready in the market, even that takes 2 to 3 years to come. Whatever is almost developed will take 5 to 8 years. Tomorrow for us is 10 to 15 years. We have to realize this, and that is why the DRDO is not performing, because we have not made this distinction. And there is a mixed chain of acquisition and design and development. Because at a point in time we have to decide, जैसे हम एक चौराहे पर आते हैं कि हमने कौन सा रास्ता लेना है, whether we move left or right. So we have to decide, is my requirement immediate? Do I need to acquire it? Do I need to marginally develop it? Or do I need research and development for which I have time? So if we bring all this together, this will give us the reason that why DRDO has not performed, what are the shortcomings, and like I said, reforming DRDO will be part of a larger reform system in which all these issues will come up, which I have highlighted.
Right. Actually, आपने जो बोला है कि it suggests to me it suggests. Look, इस जो अभी मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, I'm taking it out from what you have said. It's not my own thing, because I'm keeping my own experience, everything out of this game today. It suggests to me that there is a gap between what the services want, what the DRDO can deliver. There is a there is a gap between the services expectations and the DRDO capacity. In बीच में they have grown in separate, looks like they have grown in separate silos. As a result, ये चाहिए क्या, इन दो बैठ के एक प्लान बनाने में ये सक्षम नहीं. इसके ऊपर आप विचार बताइए.
देखिए, आपने कहा कि जो सर्विसेज की एक्सपेक्टेशन है, जो डीआरडीओ की डिलीवर करने की कैपेबिलिटी है, उनमें गैप है. दैट्स व्हाट योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग इज. सी, what I'm saying is, both of us having served in services for nearly 4 decades, we have our requirements, but these requirements have to be sifted, and these requirements have to be foreseen. आपने उनको anticipate करना है. Sifted, like I said, that the basic difference is you have to make a distinction what you need here and now for building current operational capability, which will be up to, roughly speaking, 5 to 8 years. You consider it कि जो तैयार है वही मिलेगा आपको. The second is we have to visualize the future. हमें आगे देखना है. आगे देखना है 10 साल, आगे देखना है 15 साल. पहले हमारे प्लानिंग प्रोसीजर में हमारा सिस्टम होता था लॉन्ग टर्म इंटीग्रेटेड पर्सपेक्टिव प्लान, जो 15 साल की होती थी. वो 2012 से 2027 की बनी हुई थी. अभी हमारा सिस्टम जब से चेंज हुआ है 2020 से, we are looking at integrated capability development plan for 10 years. And we have to think well beyond 10 years. So if we give it clearly, then DRDO will be able to address it. The second aspect is the entire load of current requirements and the future requirements has been put on DRDO. The expectations are much more than their capabilities, than their funds, than the technology available. The expectations are much more. we need partners. We need partners in academia. We need partners in private R&D, private industry, in startups. DRDO can't do it alone.
Yeah,
So
I
we
think
have
you,
to make this distinction.
या आई थिंक आपने दो इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट बड़ा क्लियरली बता दिया. ठीक है. एक, the services have to translate their requirements on to DRDO in a manner in which DRDO can achieve them. एक, और if this transfer of information does not take place और इसका परिणाम सही नहीं होगा, और ये मैं आपको 10 एक एग्जांपल्स भी दे सकता हूँ, उसका कोई फायदा नहीं है. But fundamentally, what the basic thing is, the integration between the services and the DRDO, whether it's for long term, short term, or everything, is lacking. I only hope that this committee addresses that bit completely. Yeah, the second point, actually, the last point which you said has slipped my mind. If you
Yeah,
could-
what I tried to say was DRDO has got on its plate more than it can handle.
Yeah,
Its
more than it
organization,
can
its
handle. Yeah,
capability, its funding.
and
You
yeah,
need
and
partners all across.
partners. तो ये क्या है कि ये एक सिस्टमिक, एक बहुत दिनों के बाद ये ड्यू टू अ लॉन्ग टाइम isolation of the defense ecosystem from the civilian setup, we have grown the DRDO without its ancillary support systems, right? क्योंकि एक रॉकेट को टेक ऑफ करने के लिए इसको कि लॉन्च पैड होता है, और DRDO today doesn't have a launch pad which is the support system जो मैंने दिखाया है. ये जो support system है, actually this is what you have really come out with, which is thing. DRDO wants to do everything in the defense technology ecosystem, whereas the rest of the lot are not in sync or not up to the mark with the DRDO. And definitely the services, the DRDO and all these people are not in the same kind of a synchronized manner in which our system has to work. And I suppose this committee will have to look into it. These two things have come out very clearly so far. मेरा next सवाल है
Before you go
yeah,
on
if
to
you want
your
to say
next
anything.
question, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry to
yeah, बोलिए
interrupt.
बोलिए.
If you just bring back that slide
Yeah, मैं ले आप.
जो अभी आपने दिखाया था.
Yeah, आप ही दिखा.
See, I don't blame DRDO.
No, I
The
don't
question
blame
is,
DRDO either.
oh,
I don't
the
blame
question,
DRDO either.
no, I mean, what we are just trying to clarify to our viewers is that today there are lots and lots of people in India who are dabbling in science and technology. But when academic institutions, when private industries, and most importantly, the ISAT, Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies, that we are going in a big way with the US. Now, when these get implemented, we don't have a system developed enough in our country to appreciate it from the perspective of defense and security. वो नजरिया देखने का होता है एक एकेडमिक तरीके से, एक कॉमर्शियल एप्लीकेशन तरीके से, एक डिफेंस कैपेबिलिटी डेवलपमेंट करने के तरीके से. आज वो सोच, वो ओरिएंटेशन और वो क्षमता वो डीआरडीओ के पास है. धीरे धीरे वो क्रिएट हो रही है, और हमें ये इंश्योर करना है कि जैसे जैसे वो इकोसिस्टम क्रिएट होता है जो आपने पूरी स्लाइड पे दिखाया, वो उतनी उतनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी उन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की तरफ धीरे धीरे जिम्मेवारी भी शिफ्ट होती जाए उनकी तरफ.
राइट. इसके ऊपर मेरे थोड़ा अलग विचार है. मेरे ख्याल में डीआरडीओ के पास वो क्षमता नहीं, अगर होता तो ये they would have taken everyone along, but then we'll leave it for another day, we'll take it forward, right?
हमारा
आप
डिफरेंस
देखिए,
नहीं है, इनफैक्ट हमारा सेम ओपिनियन है. जो आपने बताया,
ओपिनियन
आपने एक मेरे को प्रीएम्प्ट कर दिया. रामाराव कमेटी ने एक बहुत अच्छी रिकमेंडेशन दी थी. उन्होंने कहा था कि एक बोर्ड सेटअप करो, which they said Board of Research for Advanced Defense Sciences, BRATS. Now, that board is different from that one man who is heading, who's Secretary, Department
of
of
the
Defense
DRDO
R&D, who's heading DRDO, who's
and
human,
everything.
who's got
Yeah,
his interests, and who probably is not able to distribute the work, like exactly
I
like
agree
what
with you.
you said.
No,
But
I
this was
completely agree with
discarded.
this.
This was
Yeah, I agree
discarded.
with you. Look,
Yeah.
let me tell you on a different note. I've been writing and propagating and speaking to everyone. सबको मैं बताता रहता हूँ कि हमें एक डिफेंस प्रोक्योरमेंट एडवाइजरी बोर्ड चाहिए. ये एक डिफेंस प्रोक्योरमेंट एडवाइजरी बोर्ड और एक डिफेंस टेक्नोलॉजी एडवाइजरी बोर्ड की जरूरत है. जो डिफेंस टेक्नोलॉजी जो चाहिए वो हम लगा सकते हैं और सबको बता सकते हैं. It has to be, it's a multi-purpose board and advisory board to do procurement. क्योंकि we don't have the expertise to convert our technology into practicality. We don't have the expertise to convert our proposals into practicality and fruition. But that's a different story. कोई ये आज तक people have not understood that. वो अलग बात है. हो सकता है इसके जरिए हो जाएगा. But let us see कि इसरो तो ये सब कुछ कर पाया है. इसरो has been able to do everything on its own. वो किसी के पास गए नहीं. उनके पास ना टैलेंट है तो उन्होंने जो टैलेंट है उसी को हार्नेस किया है और चांद तक पहुंचा दिया हमें. तो ये क्यों नहीं कर पाए? ये एक सवाल, बड़ा सवाल पैदा होता है आम नागरिक के मन में भी.
नहीं, ये बहुत बहुत जायज सवाल है. इट्स अ वेरी जेन्युइन क्वेश्चन. And as the irony would have had it, you read in what I had written in that op-ed
Yeah,
in Tribune, that it is ironic that in the same time period, in the same week in which ISRO was being lauded by the whole country, appreciated for its performance of the landing on the moon, at the same time, this committee was set up around the same dates in the same week. So it's a very genuine question for anyone to ask, that DRDO and ISRO nearly came up at the same time. They had their forerunner organizations already existing in the country, but DRDO was formally formed in 1958 and ISRO was formed towards the end of 60s, around 1969 or so. Yani 50s, 60s, they came up as
yeah,
different
they were all
organizations.
together. Yeah.
Now, the question today is, please understand that ISRO's objective is to harness, sustain, and augment space technology for our national development. Now, they achieved this through planetary explorations. And what they've been busy in doing is they have developed launch vehicles, they have developed satellites, they have developed programs for communication, remote sensing, navigation, etc. We are all aware of the achievements of ISRO. Now, please see, ISRO progressively develops its technological base through R&D, through partnerships with different countries. We've had long-standing cooperation with France, with US, with other countries. So it is progressively developing its technological base, and the missions are planned based on where we have reached in technology. जहां तक हम पहुंच गए, हम चांद तक जा सकते हैं तो हमने चांद का मिशन किया. हम कल को मार्स का करेंगे, सन का करेंगे. यानी the missions are planned according to the threshold of technology that has been achieved, and obviously based on the national needs and the budget that is given to them. The operating environment of ISRO remains unchanged. चांद वहीं पे है, सूरज वहीं पे है, मार्स वहीं है, वीनस वहीं है, वो कहीं नहीं जा रहे हैं.
वो
and
ये बात
nobody
आपका
and nobody
सही है.
is pushing you that you have to achieve this as of yesterday. कि अरे आप जल्दी करिए, you do it against time. Now, to be fair, compare it with DRDO. DRDO works in a little nebulous environment. It has to prepare for an uncertain, dynamic battlefield which is externally defined. Now, today, we as a nation don't design the battlefield in which we'll be sucked in. It will be designed by some countries which are very advanced in technologies. And one of those countries happens to be today on our borders immediately. So we have to prepare for multiple domains. We have to prepare for a future battlefield which is not defined. And we have to adapt to the requirements of the services, because services will decide what weapons, what technologies, what equipment do they need. So they have to respond often against time in a changing environment. So let's appreciate the difference. Constant environment, pace of technology, luxury of pacing your programs. Whereas here you don't have the luxury of pacing your programs. The technology in the world is changing very rapidly. So that is the difference. We would do well to appreciate our Indian scientists. Our people who are there are equally committed, equally competent. Let's uh, give them their due, and given the proper environment, I think both will perform equally well.
Right. I मेरा इसमें थोड़ा अलग विचार है. मैं आपको बता देता हूँ. अलग विचार इसीलिए है, आप देखिए, आपने सही बोला है कि ऑपरेटिंग एनवायरनमेंट ऑफ ISRO is constant, and the operating environment of DRDO is nebulous, changing, enemy driven, technology driven. I mean, XYZ. Yeah, there's no doubt. But I'll take your mind back to 88. 88, 87, 88, जब हमने हमारे पास कुछ नहीं था, इंटीग्रेटेड मिसाइल डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम से ही शुरू किया था ये मिसाइल टेक्नोलॉजी वगैरह वगैरह. तो ये अगर आप इसके हिस्ट्री में देखोगे तो आप देखिएगा कि एक why are we successful in this entire missile program of ours? उसमें भी एनिमी अनिश्चित था, टेक्नोलॉजी अनिश्चित था. इनफैक्ट हमने तो जीरो से शुरू किया, सिफर से शुरू किया, क्योंकि उससे पहले एंटायर इंडियन आर्मी हैड ओनली वन कॉल्ड ग्रैड. उससे बड़ा कुछ था ही नहीं. ये अगर आप एक हिस्ट्री देखेंगे तो डॉक्टर एपीजे अब्दुल कलाम आए थे इसरो से, आए थे डीआरडीएल में डायरेक्टर बन के, और वो आए थे व्हेन ही वाज आफ्टर अ सक्सेसफुल लॉन्च ऑफ द SLV-3. वो टेक्नोलॉजी और वो आइडियाज लेके आए थे यहाँ इन DRDL. And then the integrated missile development program took off, and then we are at par with all technologies. We might not have the best technology to counter our friends across the borders, but we have adequate technologies to put them in deterrence. We have a whole thing. You have a SFC full. You're almost state of the art, if not state of the art. Maybe you are at that state where you can counter everything. So same nebulousness, same enemy, same this thing. So in one part of DRDO, you'll find success. In the other part of the DRDO, you find it has not been successful. So they have their model within. I mean, why I'm trying to make this point up ke saath ki they have a model of success on which to follow, and they have a model of failure in which they have to introspect. Right? Call it failure, call it not meeting expectations, whichever way you want. So both things are there. And I do hope for all our sakes, this committee looks into this. Right? And largely, I mean, if you see the history of the DRDO bosses, they've all come from the line of success. They've been successful at the level of labs or clusters. After all the successes in one particular field, they have not been able to transfer the success to the rest of the DRDO. So there are issues which I hope they do this thing. While I agree with what you're saying, that world changes, everything changes, and this thing. And I do appreciate कि इन्होंने जो what they have achieved. But like I said, there are issues for which we have to also look at it a little more deeply. But
I
having said
fully
that,
agree
sir,
with you. I appreciate what you've said. And there are many, many things which need to be
which
corrected,
which we need to be
which need to
corrected.
be improved.
मैंने मोटा मोटा तौर पर मैंने बताया. Uh, uh, right. That leads me to the next question. Is the DRDO the sole, thing, what shall I say, the organization which has led to our inability to be self-sufficient? Or others are involved? Because just अभी आपने ओवरऑल तो कर रहे हैं हम डीआरडीओ को ओवरऑल कर दोगे, ठीक है, पर बाकी पार्ट्स ऑफ दिस मशीन अगर ठीक नहीं है तो डीआरडीओ क्या करेगा? यही बात है. अगर आप एक पुराने टायर के ऊपर पुराने गाड़ी में एक नया टायर फिट करोगे, ये जरूरी नहीं है कि वो नया गाड़ी वो पुराना गाड़ी तेज चले, राइट? सो is there something else we have to do besides just reforming the DRDO?
There's a lot that we have to do. And uh, it's just to repeat what I have said in the beginning. DRDO is but a part of the larger whole reforms that we want. We have to first of all look at our revamp of our capability development and technology development architecture. We have to overhaul that system. That how I mean, this is perhaps the third or the fourth time I'm mentioning that we have to place our requirements on a definitive timeline. What is for future? What's for today? What's for here and now? We have to plan that. We have to assign the tasks of R&D. We have to do design, development, production. We have to give time. We have to allow for failures. And at the same time, we do not have the luxury of stable borders. So therefore, we have to have a firm operational standing, operational preparedness for today, allowing our DRDO industry, our startups, and everybody in that chain, allowing them time to peacefully develop future technologies. And
Uh,
we have to ensure we give them money. Nothing comes free, and the
Free,
modern
yeah.
technologies are awfully expensive. Look at the
Right, yeah, I agree
semiconductors.
with you.
You're talking of billions of dollars. 8, 9, $10 billion is minuscule in this requirement. So unless
Yeah, I
we revamp
completely
the
agree
whole
with you,
thing,
sir.
we'll not succeed.
मैं बिल्कुल आपके साथ सहमत हूँ. ये बहुत आसान है हमें बोलना कि हमें आधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए, स्टेट ऑफ आर्ट टेक्नोलॉजी चाहिए वगैरह. जब तक आपके पास स्टेट ऑफ आर्ट पैसा नहीं है, आपके पास स्टेट ऑफ आर्ट पर्स नहीं है जिसके अंदर से आप पैसा निकाल के खर्च करना चाहते हो, आपको स्टेट ऑफ आर्ट टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं मिलेगा. और ये बात सही है कि हमारे पास पैसा उतना नहीं है, पर मेरा राय ये है कि वी डोंट नीड स्टेट ऑफ आर्ट टेक्नोलॉजी टू फाइट द नेक्स्ट बैटल और एनी बैटल. यू नीड एडिक्वेट टेक्नोलॉजी है, मैं बार बार बोलता रहता हूँ. यू नीड एडिक्वेट जस्ट दैट टेक्नोलॉजी जिससे आप अपना एनवायरमेंट में लड़ सकते हो, और उसके लिए आपके लड़ने का मुद्दा क्या है वगैरह वगैरह. ये सब जो है वो सर्विसेज को अंदरून थोड़ा अंदर झांकना देखना पड़ेगा कि हम करना क्या चाहे, हम चाहते क्या है. सिर्फ डीआरडीओ को बताने से ये बात बनेगी नहीं. राइट सर, लास्ट क्वेश्चन बिफोर आई टेक queries from the audience. कि how do you think this ये जो आत्मनिर्भरता कैसे डीआरडीओ लेके आ सकता है? How do you think DRDO, what are the mota corrections or overall which is required? I will not ask you in detail. मोटा मोटा आप बताइए कि डीआरडीओ के ओवरऑल में आप क्या देख रहे हो?
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो मैं आपको और व्यूअर्स को ये बताना चाहता हूं कि सिर्फ डीआरडीओ का ओवरऑल आत्मनिर्भरता नहीं लाएगा। इसमें सब स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं जो आपने स्लाइड पे दिखाए। सर्विसेज स्टेक होल्डर है, डीआरडीओ स्टेक होल्डर है, प्रोडक्शन एजेंसीज चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट की हो चाहे वो सिविल में हो, वो स्टेक होल्डर है। इसके साथ हमारे को बजट इन्फ्यूज करना है, इसके साथ इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन है। लेकिन मुझे let me very briefly highlight 8-10 points to summarize what we have spoken so far and what will take us closer to indigenization. Number one, the point that I had just mentioned, we need a total overall, a very sincere revamping of our capability and development architecture that we have in place. The second, as far as DRDO is concerned, my view is keep Secretary Department of Defense R&D and the DG of DRDO, keep them there, because in services we learned that the problem of Army, Navy, Air Force integration of MOD was a huge problem. Here you have an inherent integration, but don't leave it only there. Have that research and development council for defense, that what I had said was board for research advanced defense sciences,
Yeah,
BRADS,
see,
जो रामाराव कमेटी ने कहा था. Third, keep DRDO as the nodal organization for defense and strategic R&D, because अभी तक हमारी सोच इतनी strategic technology में नहीं गई है, even within our scientific community, while at the same time concurrently create this capacity in the private sector, in academia, and more significantly as we introduce ISET. The fourth aspect is strategic projects, put them with DRDO because it has built a domain expertise over the years. The next thing is enhanced and assured liberal funding. The next aspect is reducing non-core work of DRDO. बहुत लोग कहते हैं कि जो इनका लाइफ साइंसेस का है वो शायद इतना कोर एरिया नहीं है, बट हम में से जिन्होंने हाई एल्टीट्यूड में नौकरी किया है, हमने देखा है कि इवन द रेडी टू ईट मील्स, इवन डिहाइड्रेटेड फूड आइटम्स दैट वर गिवन, they were not available day before yesterday in the market. DRDO was pioneer in that. So they made immense contribution, whether it is biodigesters or it is edible items. So let it be reformed within DRDO, give them greater autonomy, reduce bureaucratic controls over them, better integration with the services, better integration with the external system, including the foreign technologies, make allowance for failures, accept failures. Things will go wrong in research and development, and consider uh, some element of R&D, to my mind, should be integrated into our services, because आज हम हर चीज के लिए, जहां हमें ऑफसेट्स के लिए देखना है, हमें कोई टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर देखना है, हम हर चीज के लिए डीआरडीओ के पास भागते हैं. Make services a little more self-contained in technology. They'll perhaps be able to harness it better. So these are a few things which may help in achieving indigenization with the reform of DRDO.
Right. Thank you, sir. You given आज जो आपने बात किया, बहुत अच्छे पॉइंट्स दिए हैं. ये एक सोच विचार है आज का जो भी हमने किया है, और मैं सब अपने लिसनर्स को बताना चाहता हूँ कि एक पहल है ये पहला प्रोग्राम है. मैं 2-3 और एक्सपर्ट्स को लेके आऊंगा, अब हम सुनेंगे वो सब क्या बोल रहे हैं, और मेरा उम्मीद ये है कि ये जो कमिटी है वो इस वीडियो को देखे, राइट, ताकि उनको पता चले कि विषय क्या और सोच विचार बाहर, उनके बाहर क्या सोच विचार है, राइट? क्योंकि नहीं तो क्या है, ये कमिटियां भी दे गेट सिट इन अ क्लॉइस्टर्ड एनवायरनमेंट, एंड वो बाहर जान के देखते नहीं कि बाहर का क्या एक्सपर्टीज है, सोचने का एक्सपर्टीज और क्या आइडियाज है, राइट? और खास करके जो आपने बोला आईसेट वगैरह के लिए, मेरे विचार में तो आईसेट वगैरह लाना है तो वो इट हैज टू कम थ्रू अ सिविल रूट. There's a whole new ball game in that, but that's for a different day. So, with your permission, sir, I'll take a few questions if you don't mind. I'll talk,
Most certainly.
right?
Most
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I heard that Indian Navy has its own design bureau, which results in the most practical and working solutions. Can IA and IAF also adopt this route? Uh, this ties in with the question you said, where the services have to be given some leeway to own their own technology and handle their own technology. ये सवाल it uh, plugs into that thought of yours. So if you could clarify.
See, it's right. Navy started indigenizing their equipment, their ships, their substitute for their foreign spares with their Vasi and all quite some time back, and they have made a progress. Likewise, Army also a couple of years back started its design bureau, and I presume Air Force also has. I'm not so familiar with the Air Force system, but I presume they have a similar kind of an organization. I must admit I don't have an in-depth knowledge of Air Force, but what happens is today these are being manned by select officers of the armed forces. Now, but for at the same time, on certain technology related issues, we always fall back on DRDO. Let's say we are acquiring some equipment, and part of the offset is technology transfer. You have to evaluate, you have to give a value to that. Or we are getting some TOT, you have to get into nuances of that, which even we have extremely qualified officers, but then DRDO, some of the specialist scientists, that's their bread and butter. Now, if today we only have scientific advisors embedded with the services, but if we have certain labs, certain scientists integral to the services, perhaps they will be able to contribute more. They will be able to give their views on these aspects that I mentioned, and on issues like make one, make two, make three, these projects. So they'll be able to do it a little better. I think we need to empower the services more with technology, qualified and specialist scientists within the services, and a couple of labs there.
I just want to add, जो भी आपने बोला है, कि the Army Design Bureau, I'm not just talking about the Army Design Bureau, I'm dealing with it almost on a regular basis. It has progressed tremendously. It is discovering new technologies for the armed forces and the army and getting it in. So there is a lot of movement in that direction. As far as the Navy is concerned, the Navy has had, for whatever reason, they've had this thing of building warships right from beginning, and that is where they have, progressed tremendously. But let me give a caution. Everyone thinks that Navy is completely indigenous. It is not. The problem with the Navy, right, is that its designs of the warships, everything are their own, but the kitting of the thing is all from abroad. So there is a issue there, which is a macro issue, which people who know understand this. We'll leave it at that. I'm sure that also will be attended to by this committee, which is looking into it. Okay. The next question is, can a significant investment into academic institute using the DRDO facility be a win-win situation for both institutions? Your take, sir.
Yeah, I think we have to, like I said, we have to build the capacities in our academic institutions. Yes, the brains are there. They are doing dedicated research. And like you said, it will be a win win situation for both. Because for somebody sitting in an IIT, the value of his technology is in two areas. Number one, if his technology contributes to capability development of the nation. And two, when it gets monetized whether in field of defense or in civil applications. So if you can have the brains that we have, and we are proud of the best brains, talented technical manpower in our country, if they can be supported financially, if they can be given the lab facilities, if they can be given the testing facilities, and you hold their hand to convert these technologies into applications, to sensors, weapon platforms, different payloads, equipment. Now, this will give him the pride of having contributed to the nation's capability and the benefit of monetizing it, getting his the value for his technology. So definitely yes, and it will make the load of DRDO manageable. You can't do it all alone. We have to have
Yeah,
partnerships. So that's a very good question and a very good idea.
and let me add on, because I brought out this question with a purpose. Having been in academia and being in research myself, देखिए, our structure of the defense technology and research is through DRDO. Everything is through DRDO. ये जो circle मैंने आपको दिखाया, everything is through DRDO. DRDO becomes a funnel through which everyone has to go. The services also have to go through the DRDO funnel. The educational institutions, academia, private industry, everything has to go through the DRDO for technologies and weapon systems. And the DRDO doesn't have the capability to do it on their own. They don't have the organizational flexibility to give it to anyone else. And when I say organizational facility, I also look at the human part of the story, right? And today we are in a situation where technologies are changing every second day. I've seen the tremendous change in technology which has happened just in the past 4 or 5 years, and we are talking of ISET, which is next generation technology. Right? In fact, half of the ISET technologies are already the last generation technologies, and we still have not smelt them, and we have to go to the next generation technology. If that is the case, let me put it absolutely, I have no doubt in this in my mind that the DRDO doesn't have the bandwidth to absorb all these technologies and deliver it to the armed forces. Unless they break their own walls and open the floodgates, virtually open the floodgates to our academic institutions, to our private organizations, to our sister organizations like ISRO, DAE, and CSIR, we will not go anywhere. And unfortunately, uh, this has not happened so far. I only hope the organization or this overall committee looks into this aspect, right? Uh, which I'm very firmly convinced about, because the technology which is lying untapped in our academic institutions is tremendous. You have anything to say, sir? Otherwise, I'll take the last question.
No, let's move on.
Yeah, I'll take the last question. Is there a communication gap between the DRDO and the Indian military?
My short answer is yes. And I have elaborated it during my remarks earlier that we we have to put our requirements on a timeline. We have to understand each other's capabilities, each other's limitations, and each other's requirements. So definitely we need to interact more. We need to put them on timeline, and we have to work on it together. So there is a lot that we need to synergize the functioning of DRDO and between the services.
Yeah, I would just like to add, General Ahuja ने बात किया कि a certain amount of more advisory role of the DRDO within the services is required, or so that that services have their own research capability and technology absorption capability from within, and they find their ways for certain technologies for which everything they don't have to go to the DRDO. The reverse is also true. Many of our major projects are bereft of the service representation there. Unfortunately, क्या होता है कि the service representation comes at the top in organizational matters, but the service representation doesn't come in project execution, and that is where most of the time it goes wrong. And this is, I'm talking from very deep rooted belief and experience. Unless we have more service people into research, and this is something very important, we are going to struggle, because we don't have a system of going to the academia the way we are supposed to go. And if DRDO still has to be the basic go-to system for technology, we need more integration. And this integration is two-way, right? And that is my view. I'm sure many others will have different views, but that's part of the game. So anything else, or we can close off
No, thank
or
you.
sign off?
Thank you very much. I just want to conclude by saying that we have excellent talent across the board, whether it is ISRO or Department of Atomic Energy or our DRDO. We have to create a structure, and let's not look at only small segments, and let's not point our fingers with inadequate knowledge.
Yeah,
It's
that I agree.
we have to understand the larger system, grant human limitations, and refine our system, and it's progressive, and I'm sure we'll achieve it, and this committee will be able to make a positive contribution. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. The last comment, I leave it here. I wonder if there should be a research or DRDO representative at the politico-military fusion level. We'll talk about this some other day, Anand, because that's a huge topic, which is a different thing. But you raised a major issue, which will tackle some other day. Thanks a lot, sir, for your wonderful comments and your wonderful exposition. कि आपने विस्तार में बताया कि ये डीआरडीओ का ओवरऑल क्या है, इसका हिस्ट्री क्या है, हमने क्या हासिल नहीं किया और आगे क्या करना है और किस तरीके से हम बदलाव लेके आ सकते हैं. पर एक चीज है कि बदलाव की जरूरत है. जिस तरीके से है हम आगे बढ़ नहीं सकते हैं. बदलाव की जरूरत है. मेरा डर या संकोच यही है कि ये कमेटी तो बिठाया गया, कमेटी का रिपोर्ट के बाद इसके ऊपर अमल होगा कि नहीं, वो देखने वाली बात है. क्या हमारे पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम में वो बैंडविड्थ है कि इसको बदलाव करना है, वो भी सोचने वाली बात है, पर वो आगे देखेंगे. मैं लास्ट में इस विषय के ऊपर बात करना चाहता हूँ. आगे जैसे हम जाएंगे, 2-3 और विशेषज्ञों को लेके आऊंगा मैं, जो वो अपना राय दे सकते हैं, so that we have 4-5 different opinions for which this committee to work on. I'll send this video to the committee. Let's see if they see it. That's all, sir. Thank you. Thanks for coming, and thanks for all the viewers. आप लोगों का कमेंट्स देखा मैंने मुख्य 3 सवाल लिया है, क्योंकि अगर हर सवाल लेंगे तो कल सवेरे तक हम we can keep talking. Right? Thank you. Good evening and जय हिंद. कल हम बात करेंगे पाकिस्तान के बारे में. थोड़ा हमारा क्या नाव दूसरी ओर जाएगा, but that's a different day. Thank you, sir. Good evening and जय हिंद.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being with you all. Thank you.